the way it should be. Say you, say me, say it together naturally. Say it together naturally.
got your diamonds and you've got your pretty clothes, and the chauffeur drives your cars. You let everybody know, but don't play with me, 'cause you're playing with fire. Your mother, she's an heiress, owns a block in St. John's Wood, and your father'd be there with her if he only could. But don't play with me, 'cause you're playing with fire. Your old man took her diamonds and tiaras by the score. Now she gets her kicks in Stepney, not in Knightsbridge anymore. So don't play with me, 'cause you're playing with fire. Now you've got some diamonds, and you will have some others, but you better watch your step, girl, or start living with your mother. So don't play with me, 'cause you're playing with fire. So don't play with me, 'cause you're playing with fire.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. Shall I stay? Would it be a sin if I can't help falling in love with you? Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be. Take my hand, take my whole life too, for I can't help falling in love with you. Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be.
seamstress for the band, pretty eyed pirate smile. You marry a music man, ballerina. You must have seen her dancing in the sand. Now she's in me, always with me, tiny dancer in my hand. Jesus freaks out in the street, handing tickets out for gone, turning back, she just laughs. The boulevard is not that bad. Piano man, he makes a stand in their auditorium, looking on. She sings the songs, the words she knows, June she hums. But oh, how it feels so real, lying here with no one near, only you, and you can hear me when I say softly, slowly. Hold me closer, tiny dancer. Count the headlights on the highway. Lay me down in the sheets of linen. You had a busy day today. Hold me closer, tiny dancer. Count the headlights on the highway. Lay me down in sheets of linen. You had a busy day today. Blue jean baby, LA lady, seamstress for the band, pretty eyed pirate smile. You marry a music man, ballerina. You must have seen her dancing in the sand.
just a dreamer, but you are just a dream. And you could have been anyone to me. For that moment you touched my lips, that perfect feeling when time just slips away between us and the foggy trip.
solo sogno l'orizzonte e mancano le parole. Sì, lo so che non c'è luce in una stanza quando manca il sole. Se non ci sei tu con me, su le finestre mostra tutto il mio cuore che è acceso. Chiudi dentro me la luce che ho incontrato per strada. Time to say goodbye. Paesi che non ho mai veduto e vissuto con te. Adesso sì li vivrò con te. Partirò su navi per mari che io lo so non esistono più. It's time to say goodbye.
Quando sei lontana sogno all'orizzonte e manca le parole. E io sì lo so che sei con me, con me. Tu mia luna, tu sei qui con me. Mio sole, tu sei qui con me, con me, con me, con me. Time to say goodbye. Paesi che non ho mai veduto e vissuto con te. Adesso sì li vivrò con te. Partirò su navi per mari che io lo so non esistono più. Con te io li vivrò, con te partirò su navi per mari che io lo so non esistono più. Con te io li vivrò, con
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo in so much space. And when you're out there without care, yeah, I was out of touch. But it wasn't because I didn't know enough. I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Possibly. And I hope that you are having the time of your life. But think twice. That's my only advice. Come on now, who do you think you are? Bless your soul.
everybody, all right, this.
Anybody see? Don't wish it away, don't look at it like it's forever. Between you and me, I could honestly say that things can only get better. And while I'm away, dust out the demons inside. Before you and me run the place in our hearts where we hide. And I guess that's why they call it the blues. Time on my hands could be time spent with you, laughing like children, living like lovers. Just stare into space, picture my face in your hands. Live for each second without hesitation, and never forget I'm your man. Wait on me, girl, cry in the night if it helps. I simply love you more than I love life itself. And I guess that's why they call it the blues. Time on my hands would be time spent with you, laughing like children, living like lovers, rolling like thunder under the covers. And I guess that's why they call it the blues. I guess that's why they call it the blues.
She's a good girl, loves her mama, loves Jesus in America too. She's a good girl, is crazy about Elvis, loves horses and her boyfriend too. And it's a long day living in Reseda. There's a freeway running through the yard, and I'm a bad boy, 'cause I don't even miss her. I'm a bad boy for breaking her heart. And I'm free, free falling. Yeah, I'm free, free falling. And all the vampires walking through the valley move west down Ventura Boulevard, and all the bad boys are standing in the shadows, and the good girls are home with broken hearts. And I'm free, I'm free falling. Yeah, I'm free,
cha-cha, oh my. Let's spend the night together. Now I need you more than ever. Let's spend the night together now. I feel so strong that I can't disguise, oh my. Let's spend the night together, but I just can't apologize, oh no. Let's spend the night together. Don't hang me up and let me down. Don't let me down. We could have fun just going around, round and round, and oh my, my. Let's spend the night together. Now I need you more than ever. Let's spend the night together. Let's spend the night together. Now I need you more than ever. You know I'm smiling, baby. You need some guidance, baby. I'm just decided, baby, now I need you more than ever. Let's spend the night together. Let's spend the night together now. Oh, my, This doesn't happen to me every day, oh my. Let's spend the night together. No excuses of it anyway, oh my. Let's spend the night together. I'll satisfy your every need, your every need. And now I know you will satisfy me. Oh my. Let's spend the night together. Now I need you more than ever. Let's spend the night together now. Oh my. Let's spend the night together. Now I need you more than ever. Let's spend the night together. I'm satisfied your every need, woman. Let's spend the night together. Now I know you satisfy me, woman. Let's spend the night together. I beg you, baby. Let's spend the night together. Come on now.
When your day is long and the night is yours alone. When you're sure you've had enough of this life, hang on. Don't let yourself go. 'Cause everybody cries, and everybody hurts sometimes. Sometimes everything is wrong. Now it's time to sing along. When your day is night, hold on, hold on. If you feel like letting go, if you think you've had too much of this life, well, hang on. 'Cause everybody hurts. Take comfort in your friends. Sometimes everybody cries. Everybody hurts. Sometimes everybody hurts. Sometimes
together, didn't we? We've definitely got our thing together, don't we, baby? Isn't that nice? I mean, really, when you really sit and think about it, isn't it really, really nice? I can easily feel myself slipping more and more waves. That super world of my own. Nobody but you and me. We've got it together, baby. My first, my last, my everything, and the answer to all my dreams. You're my sun, my moon, my guiding star, my kind of wonderful. That's what you are. I know there's only one like you. There's no way they could have made two. You're all I'm living for. Your love I'll keep forevermore. You're the first, you're the last, my everything. In you I found so many things. A love so new only you could bring. Can't you see it, you? You make me feel this way. You're like a fresh morning dew on a brand new day. I see so many ways that I can love you till the day I die. You're my reality, yet I'm lost in a dream. You're the first, the last, my everything.
they're asking you to.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please take your seats, we're going to start our program momentarily. Please take your seats.
Please welcome Pastor Justin Krupski.
If you would please bow your heads as we start this event off with prayer. Father in heaven, in this moment we do approach your throne of grace humbly with confidence because of what Jesus, the Savior of this world, has done for each of us. As we move forward together in this moment, we pray as you have taught us to pray for those who are in authority, specifically our Vice President, Mike Spence, who is with us, our President and their cabinet, and all other elected leaders. They are the leaders that you have selected for such a time as this in your world. Help us to appreciate them and the weight of responsibility you have placed on them. And remind them, as the prophet Isaiah said, the government is on your shoulders, Lord Jesus. May they learn to trust in you and lean into you. Your shoulders are much bigger than theirs. And it is not about what they can do, but it is about what you can do through them. We pray that you would enable them to love mercy, to seek justice, and to walk humbly with you as they guide not just our nation, but our world. That they would have the ability to not just move us forward, but to move us forward together. We pray that you would grant them wisdom and courage as they put together policies that would enable life, safety, and freedom for all. As these economic policies are shared with us today, we ask for discernment and understanding and the ability to administrate these policies graciously when it comes time to. We also pray that you would bless America First and Cassidy Steele as they host this event. So as we begin our time together this afternoon, we now pray the petitions you taught us to pray that we call the Lord's Prayer. And if you know these petitions, I invite you to pray these with me. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the glory, and the power, forever and ever. Amen. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Director of Communications for America First Policies, Kelly Sadler.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to what is the second stop on our Great American Comeback Tour. It's time to reopen America, and it's time to reopen Michigan. Yes! My name is Kelly Sadler, and I'm the Communications Director here at America First Policies. Before we kicked off, I was wondering if any veterans, policemen, firefighters, service members in the audience, if you could please stand up. Well, I want to thank you so much for your service. America First Policies and everyone here supports the hard work that you do every day to keep us safe, and we value that. America First Policies is a nonprofit grassroots organization that supports policies that work for all American citizens, and first and foremost, that place America first. We are committed to empowering, educating, and mobilizing the millions of Americans around this country, just like you, who believe the lawmakers in Washington should be making laws that make America safer, stronger, and more prosperous than ever before. So what do we mean when we say America first? Well, first and foremost, it means taking a stand to China. China, for decades upon decades, has been stealing U.S. manufacturing, our jobs, and spying on American citizens. This status quo cannot remain, and we must stand up to China. It means advocating for free, fair, and reciprocal trade deals like the USMCA that put American workers, American farmers, and American industries first. It means a tax system that puts working families first and makes America the best place to live, to raise a family, to create a small business, and invest in. It means having fewer federal regulations on the books, not more. It means cutting away the federal regulations that strangle small businesses and entrepreneurs. It's about having the U.S. government work for us and not the other way around. And lastly, America First means an immigration system that puts American citizens first. And yes, it does mean building the wall. America First was on the front lines urging Congress to pass the biggest tax reform bill in our generation. We were also on the road last year urging lawmakers to take up USMCA and for Nancy Pelosi to bring it to the floor for a House vote. It passed last year. Now we're on the Great American Comeback Tour, urging different states all over America to reopen and to reignite, and advocating for policies that reignite our economy. You know, under President Trump's leadership, his policies of tax reform, of renegotiating trade deals, of deregulation, and making us energy independent by unleashing our energy sector, we had a blue-collar boom. Basically, blue-collar workers' wages were rising faster than their superiors. The U.S. was the envy of the world. We did it once, and we can do it again. Together, we can make sure that we bring our jobs back from China. Together, we can reignite the U.S. economy. Together, we can protect our God-given rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We here at America First, just like you, know this is going to be a fight. It's been a fight, literally, for the last 3 years. But together, we can drain the Washington, D.C. swamp and take America back. Now, before I introduce to you our special guest, Vice President Mike Pence, we'd like to have a panel discussing exactly what the Great American Tour means and what policies that we're advocating to reignite the U.S. economy. So with that, I'd like to introduce to you our panel today. First and foremost is our moderator of the panel, America First Policies Director, Curtis Ellis. Next, from Michigan's 10th District, Representative Paul Mitchell.
Hello. Great big hand.
Fist bump. Secondly, the Vice President of Chartham Gear, our co-host today, David Terry.
David.
And lastly, the Executive Vice President of Prestige Group Precision Manufacturers, Tommy Nichols. And with that, I'll turn it over to the panel. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kelly. What a great introduction. What a wonderful crowd. You're very widely dispersed, and it's good to see you. It's great to be here. And what a prestigious panel, and it's so nice to be here with you guys. Thanks for having us, David.
You are quite welcome.
So we're going to be talking about the Great American Comeback and what it's going to take to make this Great American Comeback a reality. And I guess, there's four big areas that it seemed to be what it's going to take. And those fall into basically, trade, dealing with China, workforce, and maybe even infrastructure. But before we get to that, I want to hear about your companies and this area. So David, since you're our co-host, tell us about Chartem Gear. What do you guys do? And
Well, Chartem Gear is a manufacturer of gear, spline shafts, precision components, housings, and complete gearbox assemblies for the aerospace industry.
Now what is a spline shaft? Because I know what a gear is.
Well, splines usually engage with another spline. Gears roll with other gears. So a spline shaft is similar to a keyway, but it's going to pull a lot more load.
Yeah.
So Chartem Gear actually has been in business for 73 years and started off as a service-based business, providing gear cutting services to the automotive industry. In the mid-'80s, Mike Broska Sr. took over ownership of Chartem Gear and turned the focus to the aerospace industry. So it took about 3 or 4 years before we were 100% aerospace and have walked away from the automotive industry completely, which is odd considering the area we're in. But since then, we've been continuing to grow. So when we started off in that building back there. We had the very front section of it, maybe 10, 12 employees, one shift, and worked 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, and that was it. Since then, we have grown to 3 different facilities, 73,000 square feet, and 170 employees.
Right, very good. And they're not all in the audience. Some of them are still working, right?
I believe some of them are actually still working, the diehards, or they're watching us over in Building 3.
So tell us about Prestige Group.
Well, I'm very fortunate to work for an American success story. Our owner, Bill Fritz, who's in the audience today, started a company in 1998 that did engineering design for automotive. And since then, we've grown to 6 companies and just under 350 employees. Probably one of the best things that we've been able to do is 5 of these companies that we've acquired during the time, and it was mostly during 2007 to 2010 during the recovery, were financially distressed. So we were able to bring back jobs and reignite companies. The company does itself, other than Prestige Engineering, does design engineering and staffing. We have very creative veteran development program with many of our customers as well. That's through that group.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, we have a very large machine shop that was recently certified AS9100 for aerospace. So that's going to be a great future. So now we can not only do automotive, but we do aerospace. We have some of the largest machines in the city, and we actually have done things as small as the Chrysler 300 clock, the hands and the little chiclets on there as well.
Somebody's got to make the hands of the clock.
Right. But as well, we have a warehouse and assembly operation that we brought back online that's done really well. We have a quality sorting operation that works inside our facilities and our warehouses and in our client sites. We also, with the machining industry, we also have a very comprehensive line of cutting tools and shop equipment and shop supplies that we distribute for a lot of great American companies.
That's terrific. So, Congressman, in general, so we've heard about a couple of companies here. What is the basis of the economy in this district, in this, Macomb County and the whole area?
Sure, our economy was booming along before the COVID crisis, as you can imagine. We were 3% unemployment. They were, I'm sure, having challenges finding people for jobs. Most people assume that this area is all about the auto industry, which is still big here. But we have aerospace, as you heard, a lot of manufacturing, a lot of very precise manufacturing happens here in this district. People don't know about it. plastics manufacturing that makes very fine plastic equipment for healthcare equipment. Stuff that happened here that most people don't know because they still think of us as the auto capital, and I think that's a good thing.
Right.
We like that. I'm an auto guy. But nevertheless, great deal of manufacturing. We've also got some large mortgage companies and financial companies in Michigan people know about. A lot of people are employed here in those companies. So we were doing very well, and we're starting to come back. I say that because, for example, Fiat Chrysler, which is plants in the district here, they're back to 93% employment here in the United States and here in Michigan, and that's a huge step forward in getting our economy, recovering our economy from what was a real downturn with the COVID crisis.
Yeah, yeah. So Motown is also Aerotown.
Big. I know that F-35 parts.
Oh yeah, we do parts for the F-35. We do parts for the V-22 Osprey, which is a tilt rotor aircraft.
Yeah.
We have components that are also on like the Patriot missile battery, the Mark 48 torpedo, which is quite a piece of work. If you've never seen that, YouTube that video. It will actually go underneath the ship and split the hull and break it into two pieces.
We have a company here that
it's
builds.
art if you're in our kind of business, but I'll tell you some of the bigger customers that we've been growing with is on the commercial side. You know, by building components and complete gearbox assemblies for the GE Leap, which is one of the new engine options that they're putting out there, more fuel efficient. We're involved with that, as well as parts across all the 7 Boeing series, Airbus, and some business jets too. So I mean, we're pretty well diversified between the military and the commercial side, but the biggest growth that we've seen over the past 4 years has definitely been on the commercial side. So this COVID thing hits us hard when people stop traveling.
We have a company here that does work for SpaceX. No one would ever believe that.
Cool.
You think they're in California, but they do some very precise manufacturing of equipment for the SpaceX rockets, including the one that went up recently. So you wouldn't think that's in this district, but that's a big part of what makes up Macomb County, the 10th district, is very precise manufacturing to very high standards. And that's a big part of employment here.
Well, that kind of goes into what everybody laughed when President Trump talked about, and there was all this talk about the automobile industry is a national security issue, right? They were talking about putting tariffs on imported automobiles, and he said if we lose the automobile industry, it'll have national security implications. And everybody laughed and said, "Oh, what are we're going to get? These Mercedes Benzes or tanks or something? We're going to no. If you don't have the precision machining." Which is required in the automotive industry, you're not going to have the precision machining know-how that's required for aerospace and SpaceX and 30, jet fighters, right?
Well, we have General Dynamics just down the street here as well, one of the largest producers of heavy equipment for heavy defense equipment. Where they get those skills is what's important for our industry and for the economy here. Some very, very major employers doing precise manufacturing and assembly of equipment that's very, obviously for our defense and for security.
Yeah. So how important is trade for the Great American Comeback, getting better trade deals? Now, America First Policies did a poll, and in this poll we found that 80% of Americans support new trade agreements that provide better terms for American workers than previous trade agreements. Congressman, you told me your father was a UAW worker who lost his job.
My dad built trucks in the line for General Motors, and NAFTA cost a lot of people jobs, cost a lot of jobs in this area and in the United States. When I campaigned for office in 2016, one of the things I campaigned about is no one writes an agreement that lasts forever.
Right.
NAFTA was 25 years old, and we were getting hosed. American jobs were being lost. My dad lost his job, took an early retirement because he's going to go back to midnight shift on another plant at 64 years old, right?
Wow.
So he left. He took an early retirement. We were losing jobs. And the one thing I'm proud about, John Molinar's here with us, another member of Congress, is that we passed, and it took a lot of bipartisan effort, working with Nancy Pelosi and all those folks, but the president led, and we finally drove through Congress on USMCA, a better trade deal with Mexico and Canada to bring jobs back to America, manufacturing jobs and that we lost over the decades. So it's a huge issue, and we should be proud of that. You all should be proud of it because all of your calls and letters to members of Congress across this country and across Michigan helped drive USMCA to the finish line. Otherwise, we'd still be sitting here hoping it got done.
Yeah, I remember during the campaign, President Trump he was then candidate Trump, of course, came up to Michigan and he said, He said it used to be we made cars in Flint and you couldn't drink the water in Mexico. Now they make cars in Mexico and you can't drink the water in Flint. And that's kind of what happened after NAFTA.
Well, we grew up with, in my case, anyways, I grew up with NAFTA. So to see what President Trump did with the trade agreement with Canada and Mexico, we've seen in our warehouse, and including China, one of our biggest clients in the warehouse is China. And we found ways to make money dealing with China. And this is,
that's not easy.
Yeah, that's not easy.
This has been we've received a lot of phone calls now from companies, even Chinese-based companies, that are trying to find ways to either assemble their product here. So not only is it going to help companies come back here, it's going to help us get more business that was being done in China by Chinese companies in here, whether it's assembling air vents or sequencing parts, repackaging things. There's all kinds of opportunities now flowing in based on these agreements. But not to mention, just doing a little bit of research, the USMCA in the next 5 years is going to create 76,000 jobs just in automotive.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And that has to do with the percentage of the vehicle that went up now from 62.5% to 75%. Not only that, all the investment that's going to be needed.
Let's talk about that, because what's called deemed products, what percentage of the United States, if it wasn't specifically named in NAFTA, it was deemed to be made in North America.
Right.
All the electronics in your vehicle, how many people have nav systems and all that in your vehicle, that wasn't named 25 years ago.
It didn't exist.
It didn't exist, right.
You had an onboard computer 25 years ago, and then you had a K-Pro in the trunk.
It was deemed to be North American. Now, not much of that, if any, is made in North America. So we were getting, in multiple ways, the NAFTA was an anachronism that was killing us and killing jobs. So that's now part of the equation where you consider the whole car and not just, well, we aren't going to count that kind of stuff. Yeah. That really hurt American industry and my dad.
Yeah. Now, we used to have a great machine tool industry in America. I remember back in the day, one of the leading economic indicators, the economists were trying to figure out which way is the economy going. They'd look at machine tool orders. Are businesses expanding? Are they buying more machine tools? You've got a great story about Chartem Gear and machine tools that has to do with trade and what's wrong with our
as
trade.
Chartem was increasing to grow, we decided we were going to go out and we were going to purchase a new CMM machine. Actually, it was a gear analyzer.
What's the CMM?
It's a coordinate measuring machine. So, it's programmed to go through and check multiple dimensions that it would take somebody quite a bit longer to do manually by doing it on a plate check. So the machine we were trying to get, though, was actually a gear analyzer. So it checked all the properties of the gear tooth. It checked all the runouts of how that gear ran, the eccentricities of it. But we wanted it to actually be able to have some CMM ability as well, to be able to check holes and check diameters. Well, there wasn't a company in America that actually had put those two technologies together, although they're basically the same machine. It was a software issue. And the reasoning was, for a machine like that, for a machine tool company like that to be able to do that, they need to compete globally. And the market just wasn't there for them. So we were able to find a good machine out of Europe that was able to put those two aspects of inspection together. And the machine was about a $375,000 machine. So we had to set up with an import-export company to get the machine shipped in from overseas. And our taxes, or our tariff on that, was approximately $7,000, $7,700. Mm-hmm. That same company said, well, if you were to take this same machine and ship it back over to Europe, that tax would be $77,000, or 20% the cost of that machine. Well, it's no wonder that machine tool makers can't possibly 10 times. And that's, that's the kind of market that they have to try to compete in. So, everybody has to get pretty much pigeonholed and figure out where they're going to compete here and where they can compete overseas. And hopefully, with the new trade deals that are now getting negotiated through this administration, we're going to be able to close that gap and see the economy even kick off more.
Yeah, I mean, we have this terrible disparity. We drop our tariffs, right? We drop any barriers for other people to sell here, but they're not doing it that way. That doesn't sound like free trade, and I didn't even know free trade even
doesn't
exists.
exist, does it? I don't think it exists in the world.
It takes two to tango.
That's right.
Which gets us to the elephant in the room, which is China. So how important is it? Well, we asked the American people, in our wonderful polling operation, conducted by someone you know.
Good
And 80%, 8 out of 10 Americans support bringing jobs back from China. They think it's very important that we get our jobs back from China, that maybe tax incentives, whatever it takes, but we got to bring manufacturing back from China to the United States. So how important is it?
Oh, I think it's critically important, and I've had the chance on multiple occasions to talk to the president about it. We need to make our deal with Europe and get a fair arrangement there with Europe, and then with our allies, take China to task. In multiple ways, they're taking advantage of not only us, but the world.
Yeah, tell us how.
Not just in tariffs. They charge tariffs on our goods going over there, and we don't charge tariffs here. But they also set up other than tariff barriers. For example, they claim our equipment, for example, doesn't meet their standards. Meanwhile, by the way, they're shipping over here baby food that's got, dog food that poisons animals. We'll go through a list. Baby toys that had lead paint on them.
They're a hell of a crew to talk about standards.
Yeah, well, standards are a malleable thing. So we've got, and then on top of that, they try to steal, and they do steal intellectual property. They've literally stolen plans from automakers and others to build vehicles there. They try to steal our our military technology.
I understand they're making a F-35 knockoff.
They're pretending to. We'll see if I don't think it'll compete, but they're pretending to. I also serve in House Armed Services, so I'm aware of what they're doing there. But what they've done is multiple ways to take advantage of us, because we thought if we brought China into the World Trade Organization, that they would learn to play nice with the rest of the world. Guess not. They're not going to play nice with the rest of the world. They will take advantage of anybody they can. And until we accept that and hold them to task on it, we're going to continue to lose jobs. So I think the president's on the right track, and holding China accountable for their actions and getting a fair deal.
Yeah. Have you guys had any? You had a great experience. Did you go ahead, Tommy?
Yeah, we have a large machine shop, and we talk about aerospace. Many aerospace contracts can't be outsourced outside the United States, so that all by itself has saved a lot of machine shops in the area. But when you look at an automotive company that can source a large metal tool to China, and what President Trump is addressing in one sense is landed cost, which is not only how much does it take to make it, but then they have to ship it here. It has to be on a truck across the country to get to Detroit. When they can make it cheaper in China, ship it here all the way, all the time, and then when it gets here, designs, they evolve over time. There's changes that have to be done here in the United States, and that can still be done cheaper than doing it here with our people. If they can do anything on that side of the business to help us compete, that's a great point. That's a gigantic difference in percentage. If we can get any help here, because we are in most cases, we can get competitive, but it's difficult. We're trying to grow wages and grow jobs as well. But to address your point about security, when you have 90% or 95%, I think, of the ibuprofen is made in China, and then you look at automotive companies, that were down, if those plants weren't there, we probably wouldn't have been able to make the ventilators, which were able to open up the country again. And now we're able to give those ventilators, sell those to other countries, and just from a human perspective, we're able to provide those to countries that can't get them themselves and can't get them from China, because China decided where they're going to do business, and they're going to do business with their partners. Right. So if you're not a supporter, we as a country, the fact that we can be there, that's the America I think that we all know, right? Is the country that can, Arsenal Avenues in Warren, that got its name during World War II. Right. I mean, those plants were converted. They could make anything. If we can make ventilators, we can make torpedoes, we can make planes and tanks. Even if you don't have to use them, the fact that we have them is a deterrent, and we're able to keep them.
Congress is increasingly putting in what's called Buy American provisions, where federal money is going into.
Yay!
Yes. And you see that, again, the president's pushed that issue, and Republicans and Democrats agree. And one of the things we dealt with as an example, the passenger rail cars and some of these high-speed rail systems are produced by a company. They claim they set up a manufacturing company in the United States. By the way, the Chinese funded it. literally funded it. They gave them a loan, and they claim to be an American company.
I heard about that. They bid on cars in Chicago. They were
Well,
going to build the L.
They underbid the cost massively of what the domestic competitor was. Well, if federal money is going to be used for that, we're putting an end to that little dance. It's buy American. It may cost a little bit more, but we're not going to have Chinese technology in our infrastructure, in our train transportation system, in our defense systems, because it puts this country, and our health care, to be frankly, it puts this country at risk.
Abraham Lincoln said, it was during the Lincoln administration that we built the Transcontinental Railroad, right? And he said the rails have to be made in America, even though it was cheaper to buy them from Britain. Because he said, when we buy foreign goods, we get the goods, the foreigners get the money. When we buy American, we get the goods and the money. And you were just saying about the Buy American with aerospace. That is why we have an aerospace industry, why we have machine tool industry to a large degree, because the federal, it just makes no sense to me, Congressman, you got it right. When we're spending taxpayer dollars, why aren't we hiring Americans to do that work? I mean,
and as you noted, some of the technology is critical when you're talking about our ability to build ventilators. We did not have that capability domestically when the COVID issue hit. We didn't have them. We do now. Yeah. We are not producing enough of our pharmaceuticals in the United States. They're being produced all over the world. China is a great deal of India in terms of generics, but we can't then get the medications we need. We need to start thinking about this holistically in terms of impact, and not just can we get a couple of cents cheaper, because it may be cheaper today, but if they take advantage of us, we're going to be in a seriously bad situation.
That's right. Looks like you had something to say.
No, what I was going to say is still a lot of the commercial aircraft components, assemblies, and parts are still being done overseas. So the military stuff has to stay here, and I mean, that just makes sense. We don't want our stuff being stolen. We want to be able to protect our country. But you're still seeing a lot of the larger companies, whenever they're getting new programs that have any kind of teeth to them, any kind of production that would really set off some good American aerospace companies, they figure out a way to send it to another country, make it cheaper, and I'd love to see some incentives to keep that stuff right here in America.
Yeah. Just to follow up on that, as a business person, and I know my company as well, we're not looking for a gift. All we're looking for is a fair shot at the work. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy to get the work here. People make a little bit more, there's more people working, wages go up, and guess what? They buy more cars, buy more furniture, buy more clothes, buy more food. All of a sudden, everybody in the company, $1 can spend multiple times. But if it's not there, it's never going to be spent. And it's so important to do that.
There's an example of that we talked about today, and I was on a bill markup on transportation infrastructure. Someone proposed an amendment, and unfortunately failed. Right now, we buy an awful lot of our cobalt from Africa.
And the cobalt goes into making steel.
Batteries. Batteries for electric vehicles, your iPad, your phones. The reality is, it's being mined by children.
Yeah. Which actually is illegal under American law. You're not supposed to import anything made with child labor.
We have companies that are doing it still. They make the battery overseas, so then it isn't caught there, and we get these batteries in, for example. They have an advantage over us because they're, in fact, using child labor to do some of this. You see it in the apparel industry as well.
Totally.
And these are the things we've got to start to deal with as a country if we want to keep healthy. I mean, we lost our entire apparel industry overseas because of competition on cost.
Right.
Using labor that's at least underpaid, in other cases, kids.
Yeah. Well, what you were saying, Tommy, I mean, that about raising wages, that was the philosophy that built this country. Again, starting with old Abe Lincoln, his economic advisor was a fellow named Henry Carey, and even going back before him, Alexander Hamilton, and they said the idea is to raise wages, because if people have more money to spend, then they will buy more. And Henry Ford, I forgot, I'm in Michigan here. Henry Ford, I mean, he said, I'm going to pay people enough to buy the cars they're making. And then he went further and he said, I'm going to pay them 6 days' wages for 5 days of work, because that way they'll have time and a reason to buy the car, because now I can go, have a picnic for the weekend. So when you see people working all the time like they used to do in Britain, in the mills, the dark satanic mills of Great Britain, people working 18 hours a day, they weren't going to buy anything. They had no time to do anything. It's like they were so tired out by the end of the day, they just went home and slept and, ate and passed out. And you can't build a consumer economy. You can't build anything off that.
Yeah, it's very important that I think that all these things take place. And I don't know what will happen in November if there isn't a president here that supports those things. One of the provisions of the USMCA was that there are certain industries that people have to be paid more than $16 an hour, or at least.
That's right.
And I'll tell you, it was because we had a little chuckle about it, but after that was passed was the first time that anybody had contacted our company from Mexico to do business. Mm-hmm. So they actually came to us and said, "Can you guys want to have a partnership?" And that's the kind of things that this will generate. It's the things that we don't see and that you don't hear that are going on, in business. So yeah, wages are very important, and I agree that anything we can do to get the work back here, again, if there's 76,000 missing people in the workforce pre-COVID, that's a lot of wages.
Yeah.
And the harder it is, we have a staffing company, and the harder it is to find people, the more the wage goes up and the more people are willing to pay for those people because they realize that they're part of the cog in the machine that makes the product.
Comment for you. I know what's going to happen in November. You all know what's going to happen in November. We need to reelect the president of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely.
The job has begun. It's only partly done. You can't fix the problems that this president inherited, the issues he inherited in dealing with Congress in 4 years. We're on the way with China. We're dealing with trade overseas. We're getting a better deal in terms of Buy America for product. But we have to elect a president. Otherwise, I think you're right. We run the risk of taking a step backwards. We do not need that. We need another consistent, strong 4 years with a president leading the way. And that's all up to you folks helping get the word out. So please do, because it makes a difference on jobs and on futures for your children and our community.
One of the things we're working on at America First Policies is voter registration. And I just can't impress how important that is for everybody. There are a lot of people that maybe support the president and support his policies and want to bring jobs back and hold China accountable and all that aren't even registered to vote. So I encourage everybody, talk to your friends, talk to your relatives, talk to your neighbors, get them registered. Please encourage them to register and to vote, because that's so important. We found that even people who go to these, there's a huge percentage, I mean a surprising percentage of people that show up at the Trump rallies, those famous patented rallies, that aren't even registered to vote. It's like, what? You're going to stand in line for 6 hours, 12 hours, overnight, camp out, go in, and you can't even vote for the guy. So we got to register. Well, I've got a proposal for a China trade deal. Yeah, we've got the Phase 1 trade deal. By the way, you were saying about China and the Buy American. China is actually, I was reading this yesterday, the Chinese Communist Party, which controls the government over there. There is no independent business in China. It's all run by the Communist Party. They're trying to now buy up companies that are distressed because of the shutdown, and we've got economic hard times here. And they're trying to buy up some of these companies. Some of these companies are suppliers to the defense industry.
Sure.
So there's a microscope being put on a lot of smaller companies that are up for sale because the Chinese are trying to come in and buy them, and that could be a real threat.
Well, an example of that is the president took a pretty strong stance regarding Huawei.
Yeah, the
5G
telecom company.
Telecom company. And we've managed to get Europe on board to a great extent as well. They were undercutting the price of a couple other manufacturers. In fact, none in the United States. Aren't any in the United States at this point in time, for 5G technology and your high-speed data transfer. But it was Chinese equipment. Now, anybody want to have data transmitted by your government, by the Department of Defense, pick whatever you want, the State Department, and go through equipment that is Chinese equipment and you don't think it's going to go back to China? Folks, I serve on House Armed Services, and one of the big discussions is what the intelligence is telling us what the Chinese have done. So we finally began to address those types of technology issues that were ignored for decades, and that's been destructive for our national defense and our economic status.
Yeah. Are people finally getting it? Well, I know people here get it. People in Washington getting it that China's not a partner, not a reliable business partner. It's not we got to be careful with these folks.
As my grandmother used to say, fair is in the eyes of the beholder.
Right.
And what they think is fair and we think are fair is pretty far apart. But We'll see what happens with China here. Pompeo, was he over today? He's over in Hawaii meeting with the Chinese, either today or tomorrow, I've forgotten which.
Yeah.
I don't know what the agenda is, but it'll be interesting.
And right before he meets, suddenly they attack in India. they start rattling their saber. Yeah. Well, I've got an idea for a new China.
That's a war with rocks and sticks. I don't understand that. Yet they had people die. I don't understand that.
Unbelievable.
It's
terrible.
Yeah, it's
terrible. I have an idea for a China trade deal. We keep our jobs and they keep their virus. What do you think? You like that? Well, maybe the most important thing for the Great American Comeback is the American worker, and making sure people have. Before this all shut down, I used to hear from a lot of companies that they couldn't find people with the skills they needed. So let's talk about workforce training. That was, interestingly enough, just coincidentally, we asked about that in our poll, and we found that 94% of Americans believe and support funding for vocational and technical job training in high schools. Now, you can't get 94% of Americans to agree that the sun comes up in the morning. So that seems like a pretty good number and a pretty good place to start. So I understand that you used to be or have been in the workforce training development business.
I spent 35 years doing that.
Yeah.
I think our schools, and Shane's here, and he serves the state legislature on this issue. Our schools, it starts at K-12 issue. We have done a terrible job in the state and the United States preparing young people even to learn technical skills. Mm-hmm. We have failed to educate young people on basic sets of skills, mathematics, writing a coherent paragraph.
Right.
And then you try to teach them technical skills on top of that, and then you get lost. Now, we're doing more, we call it technical education, STEM education in our schools, but not enough. Why? Because everyone was told, I was told, we were all told we grew up that, well, you need to go to college to be successful.
Right.
Right? But we screwed up, folks, because we need machinists. We need tool and die makers. We need medical professionals. They don't need to go to school for 4 or 5, actually 5 years is now the average, by the way, to get to an undergraduate degree. What they need to do is learn those skills. More people need to do that.
Right.
We need to fund that. And funding that needs to be done with employers. Because I think what you want to do is once you get a basic level of technical education, is to do something to help employers with the costs they have as they hire people, that if they hire them and keep them, part of their cost is offset. That way we link it directly to a job and just don't run training to run training that bureaucrats run. Right now in this country, we spend about 25% of the total amount of money we put in workforce education on administrative costs for bureaucrats in Washington, Chicago, and Lansing before money gets out to serve someone to train them. They need a job to work in any of your plants because it's going to bureaucrats that sit in their nice little cubicles. We need to fix that problem.
That's not right.
No, it's not.
No. As a matter of fact, we're going to have later in the program, we're going to have the U.S. Secretary of Labor, and the Department of Labor oversees all the apprenticeship programs and the job training programs. So you can tell them about that.
Secretary Scalia and I have talked. I'm going to go meet with him. Yes, absolutely.
But you guys are doing it, so tell us what's going on.
Yeah, and I think it goes a little bit beyond just vocational schools, although it's a good start. A lot of the trade schools that are out there, they may teach some people some of the basics on running a lathe or maybe a mill, which is, the basic machining operations that is going to start the process. But for a company like ours that build precision gears and precision assemblies, there's really not a school for that. I mean, there's been some places that
learning
pop
by
up.
doing, right?
Yeah,
that's
and that's basically it. So we tried different training methods and ended up landing on one where we actually have the people that are experienced within our company that are building videos and training people how to inspect parts. I mean, in our company, we're making flight safety critical aerospace components. So these things can't get on an airplane if they're wrong. So the first
I don't want
thing,
to get on an airplane with a faulty part in it.
right? Absolutely. I mean, who does, right? So when
hands, anybody want to get on an airplane with a bad part in it? And I don't see any takers.
So when we get new employees in, we have to really stress that, right? That the parts that you're making and you put in that box, you have to have confidence that that's a good part, because it might be you on the airplane next time or your family members.
That's right.
And it's hard to get that across anymore because people just don't see it. Even in the machine tool industry, when somebody's in there running a machine, I mean, it's like a big washing machine. All they see is the closed door with all the safety. Nobody's getting personal with the equipment no more. So it's hard to learn. And you can make a whole lot of parts on this new machine tools, but you can also make a whole lot of bad parts really fast.
Right.
So what we start with is we train them how to inspect their work. You need to know if you're making a good part. So during our onboarding process, we have a series of videos that have been made from the people that work within our company. Sure, there's off-the-shelf stuff that we can certainly go out there and buy, but this way it's more personalized. And it also helps our top performers, our superstars within our shop, learn how to teach better. And it gives the people watching the videos, somebody to walk up to. I mean, I've actually even made a few of the videos. They don't realize that I was once out in the shop, running machines, doing other things. They see me, I come in, I got a suit on, or I got a button-up shirt. They just look at me, hey, it's another one of those guys in the front, right, But what I want them to be able to do is walk up to me and say, hey, I seen you did that video on how to read a blueprint. Can you help me with this? I'm a little confused, what have you. And so hopefully we don't have that breakdown between the front office and the shop floor that you see happen as companies continue to grow. We work really, really hard to try to keep that gap closed. I think we've done a good job of that. And on top of it, we were hiring people at a rate of keeping, I should say, maybe 1 out of every 5 applicants that we would hire. Since we've implemented this program, we're keeping 2 out of 3. So that's a huge win for us, and we're very proud of the results of that.
That's great. And Tommy, how's it going?
Yeah, this is near and dear to my heart. Our company has really grown the depth and breadth by employee development. But we've specifically honed in a lot of our efforts on returning veterans and veterans that are distressed. We started in 2011. We're very proud that, excuse me, we're one of 11 companies in Michigan that were awarded a gold level veteran-friendly employer. If you look at the list, I told you we're around 350 employees. Every single other company on there is over 5,000, and most are over 10,000. So for us to be on that list, we had to do some pretty amazing things. We were also awarded the gold medallion from the federal government, Hire Vet medallion. Last year, we've got an award from the Macomb County for Health and Human Services for serving under or disadvantaged populations. But one of the things I think that gets lost, in 2011, I heard 2 things. One was we were at a plant, and they said that 99 out of the 100 skilled tradespeople were eligible for retirement.
Wow.
I mean, when you think about that, and you looked at our educational system back then, there was really no money in training people like that. That's changed dramatically since then. We have mechatronics programs and several others. But the other was, which turned out to be an amazing program for our veterans, was we sat down with a director of engineering at a large automotive company and his vice president. And one of the things they talked about was they had 26 engineering jobs that required a degree that they could not fill. So we asked them if they would be open to very smart individuals, dedicated, show up for work, understand discipline, understand how to get work done, understand checklist, and their heads cocked. But in the end of the day, the basic premise behind this program was we found really smart people that were separating from the military, from helicopter pilots to combat engineers to airborne to aircraft mechanics like myself. We right now today have 30 people, humans, veterans now that have transitioned from the military to civilian life that are operating in jobs that require degrees without degrees. It's just been an amazing program. And I guess in 2011, it seemed insurmountable to address something this big. That we had the highest suicide rate, homeless rate. Even with the VA, in our plant, we work with the workforce therapy program with the VA that takes recently homeless, disabled, or people with issues that they're trying to overcome, and we give them employment experience to put on their resume. So we have this assembly plant. We brought 10 people in. And I get there a couple times a week, and I came back after about the 3rd or 4th week, and I noticed 2 of the women that were in our program were no longer there. And I asked what happened, and we get very little information, which it's privacy, so I get that. But when I called up the VA to say, hey, what happened? I'm just curious. It turns out that you're part of the solution, right? And you don't have to be the whole solution. You just have to offer help. It turns out that because we had 4 weeks of experience now on these women's resumes, and the marketing arm of the VA, which is wonderful, the 2 women got hired at Ford Motor Company. So they went from making $11 an hour being paid through the VA to working at Ford Motor Company, and all we did was give them 4 weeks of experience. So anybody out here that has a company, consider removing a degree barrier, because one of the things that we found in these engineering jobs that didn't get filled, they really didn't need an engineering degree. They weren't doing finite element analysis. They weren't analyzing CAD designs for crash. They were documenting the change management of an engine or a vehicle and going into a meeting and presenting what they knew. This is what they did in the military. We had a helicopter pilot, 2 degrees. When we found him, he just got back from Afghanistan. He flew the Chinook helicopter, if any of you are familiar with it, CH-54. It's a twin rotor helicopter, low and slow, very few defenses. This man flew there for a year. He came home. The job he got was $13 an hour. I wanted to cry when I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
We got him a job in a logistics group making $28 an hour. In 3 months, he went from this automotive company, and they sent him out to a supplier that wasn't following the manual that they gave him. All he did, and he's a manual addict, right? He flies a helicopter, inspections. He took that manual, got with the people in charge, and he reinvented the company inside. He changed the company in 3 months, something that the people within this automotive manufacturer weren't able to do for 2 years.
Amazing.
And he was sitting in a place making $13 an hour. 2 degrees, 2 bachelor's degrees, combat helicopter pilot. If that happens around here, if anybody knows any veteran looking for work, please look up Prestige Group, and we'd be happy to help any way we can. And if we can't help them, we'll find a way to get it done.
That's a great story, and that is a great note to end on, because that is the great American comeback. It's about Americans, it's about veterans, it's about all of us getting opportunities, having a way forward here. Better paying jobs to build a better America. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, David. Thank you, Congressman Mitchell. And thank you all. I'm going to ask everybody to, we're taking a 10-minute break, and then we're going to be joined by the rest of the program, the guy you came to see, unless that was us. But thank you so much. A big hand for our panel.
1, 2, check 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, check 1, check 1, 2, 1, 2, check 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, check 1, 2, 1, 2.
Hello, Ruby in the dust. Has your band begun to rust? After all the sin we've had, I was hoping that we'd turn back. Old enough now to change your name. When so many love you, is it the same? It's the woman in you that makes you wanna play this game.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll please take your seats, we're going to resume our program. Please take your seats.
I've been alone with you inside my mind, and in my dreams I've kissed your lips 1,000 times. I sometimes see you pass outside my door. Hello, is it me you're looking for? I can see it in your eyes, I can see it in your smile. You're all I've ever wanted, and my arms are open wide. 'Cause you know just what to say, and you know just what to do. And I want to tell you so much. I love you. I long to see the sunlight in your hair and tell you time and time again how much I care. Sometimes I feel my heart will overflow. Hello, I've just got to let you know, 'cause I wonder where you are, and I wonder what you do. Are you somewhere feeling lonely, or is someone loving you? Tell me how to win your heart, for I haven't got a clue. But let me start by saying I love you. Are you somewhere feeling lonely? Is someone loving you? Tell me how to win your heart, for I haven't got a clue. But let me start by saying I love you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President of Kazade Steel, Bruno Kazade.
Wow. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. A lot of the people here asked me, how did you get Vice President Pence to come to your shop? Back in November, my friend Mike Broska, where are you, Mike? Called me up. We were talking about the displeasure we had with the local politics. Said we should write some letters to Washington, so we did. We asked the White House if we could get a visitor to support us, to support our Republican companies here. After a whole lot of effort by a lot of people, the White House graciously accepted our invitation. About 2 weeks ago, they notified us that this event was going to happen on Tuesday, June 16th, 2 days ago, which was Mike's sister's birthday. And we were all in a conference room, and I said, you know, it's too bad that event's not going to happen on Thursday. They said, why? I said, because that's my birthday, so happy birthday. Welcome to the party. There's one person that's not here today in body, but I know he's here in spirit. That's my father, Luigi Kazade. He died in 1997. He left school after the second grade and went to be a blacksmith apprentice because there was not enough food or money for the family of 10 that he was in. He married my mother, Maria, after World War II, and they immigrated to the United States in the early 1950s. My father in 1951, my mother in 1953. Neither one of them could speak a word of English. But they came here, they worked hard to learn how to speak, read, and write the language. When they got to New York, they settled in Mount Vernon. My father learned the structural steel trade, and my mother worked as a seamstress in the garment district. After a few years, they became United States citizens, and America was now their permanent home. It taught my brothers and I to respect other people and their property, that a person should work for what they need so they would appreciate what they have in life. In 2001, my brother Robert and I formed a little fabrication company to put into use the trade skills we learned from our father. We worked hard to build a company that we are very proud of today. We thank God every day for the blessings that we have at Kazade Steel. By the way, Kazade means house of God. The team that makes up our company, our estimators, our detailers, counting staff, machine operators, fitters, welders, loaders, drivers, local 25 iron workers, our customers, our suppliers, and all their team members. There's 2 people on that list I didn't mention. And we feel they're our team members also. Those 2 people are Donald Trump and Mike Pence. With the help of the current administration, we are celebrating the Great American Comeback. The Jobs Act of 2017, implemented by the current administration, has allowed Kazade Steel to implement a phased expansion plan that began in 2017. Phase 1 expansion is here to my right, this beautiful equipment receiving bay, along with fabrication equipment. Phase 2 will begin shortly with another building expansion and the addition of more fabrication equipment. We have been able to invest in the latest software, training, and to provide a better work environment and better paying jobs at Cousin A Steel for their team members. We are proud to be part of the great American comeback. We want every American to have a good job, a good paying job, and the training to do that job. And the most important person in the President's cabinet to make that happen may be the man I'm about to introduce. He works every day to promote opportunities for gainful employment. He's expanding apprenticeship programs and on-the-job training so the generation that follows us will be prepared to keep America great. Now, please help me welcome the United States Secretary of Labor, Gene Scalia.
Bruno, thank you. Happy birthday. Quite a birthday treat to have the Vice President here with you today. And it's a treat for me to be here, here at Casa Day, and also to have visited Chartam Gear. And what a wonderful story, too, Bruno, about your father coming here. My grandfather came here from Italy, not speaking a word of English, when he was a boy, and got to see his son become a judge, and then a Supreme Court Justice, Antonin Scalia, my father, on the United States Supreme Court. And as my father would say, only in America. So it's a treat to be here at Casa Day, the House of God. And it's wonderful to be in Michigan. It's wonderful to be on the road. It's wonderful to be outside the Beltway. I got to go to a restaurant today. You know, what a treat. I think my fourth restaurant in about 3 months, and my third in the last couple of weeks with the Vice President, which is a special treat. But it's been a hard few months for the American people. It's been tough in so many different ways. We've lost friends, we've lost families, we've lost jobs. There's been a lot of sacrifice, but we've turned a corner. We're reopening, and we're on the mend. We put out a wonderful jobs report at the Labor Department just 2 weeks ago, showing that in May we added 2.5 million jobs to the U.S. economy. We dropped our unemployment rate. We've lost so many jobs in this country, but we knew it ought to be temporary. We knew we were pausing. We knew we could reopen, and we knew we had the leadership to help us make that happen. President Trump made some very important moves early on, not just stopping transportation in and out of China, but also major bipartisan legislation in March to put us in a position for the rebound that we're now in the midst of enjoying. That included the CARES Act, which provided economic impact payments to Americans from the Internal Revenue Service. Nice to have the money going the other way, isn't it? And also the Paycheck Protection Program, which I think both these companies were able to use to help keep workers on payroll, keep up and running while awaiting the reopening. The other reason we're positioned to do well now is because of the economy that President Trump, Vice President Pence brought us before we had the virus. We had an extraordinary economy. In the summer 2016, before the election, the Congressional Budget Office said, you know, we'll probably have 1.9 million new jobs by the year 2020, and maybe we'll have 5% unemployment. Well, you know what? We had 3.5% unemployment. We didn't add 1.9 million jobs. President Trump, Vice President Pence added 7 million jobs with the hard work of the American enterprise, the American working people. Now, here's another thing. Pleasure to be here with the Vice President. The first time I traveled with him, we were coming out, I think it was to Wisconsin, to talk about the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement, how essential that was to American workers to help bring jobs back here. Maybe the single most important thing that made Donald Trump want to be president was to keep jobs in America, to stop them being siphoned away to other countries through, among other things, unfair labor competition. And guess what? In January of this year, I was so honored to attend a ceremony at the White House where the president signed that USMCA agreement. It goes into effect next month. That agreement will bring hundreds of thousands of jobs to the United States that are elsewhere right now. And by the way, it'll be very strong for the auto sector, which you know is so important here, and for American manufacturing as a whole. So we have turned a corner, we're on the rebound, and we're well positioned. And there's one other way in which we've been so well positioned for this rebound, and that's been the leadership of the president and the leadership of the man I have the pleasure to introduce as we've dealt with the coronavirus. I, as a member of the coronavirus task force, have now had the pleasure to see the same persistent, reassuring leadership by the Vice President that you've had the opportunity to watch day in, day out as he and the President have updated us on our progress. And it's my very, very great privilege today to introduce to you the Vice President of the United States, Michael Pence.
Well, hello, Michigan. And thank you to really one of the hardest working members of the President's cabinet. He is a dedicated American. He's focusing on improving the lives of workers even in these challenging times. Would you join me in thanking the Secretary of Labor, Gene Scalise? He's doing a phenomenal job for America. Thank you for those good words, Mr. Secretary. To Secretary Scalia, to Congressman John Molinar, Congressman Paul Mitchell, our great friends, to State Representatives Annette Glenn and Shane Hernandez, and all the incredible men and women of Chartham Gear and Casa de Steel. It is great to be back in the Wolverine State. Thank you for coming out in the sunshine on this balmy June day. Thank you for being part of a great American comeback right here in Michigan. I just had a great tour of these two great companies, Casa de Steel and Chartham Gear, two tremendous American businesses. I want to congratulate all of you for the job you do with these two great companies. 84 years, been building America with the steel that is American strength and providing the technology that's been providing for our national defense. And I have to say with these two great companies that contribute so much to a safe and secure America, as your Vice President and as the proud father of a United States Marine aviator who flies an aircraft, parts of which are made right here, thank you for all of you do to keep America safe. It really is good to be with all of you. And I've had a great day in Michigan. I just had lunch at the Engine House over in Mount Clemens. Opened up on Monday. I couldn't decide between a cheeseburger and pasta, so I had both. And I know as of Monday, just like all of Michigan, restaurants are opening up in this great state because we're opening up America again. And before I go any further, allow me to bring greetings from another friend of mine, a man who loves the state of Michigan and loves manufacturing and steel like no other American I have ever met. Allow me to bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. You know, we've all passed through very challenging times over the last several months. But I'm proud to report to you, after all that we've been through, standing here today because of the sacrifices the American people have made, because of the incredible dedication of our healthcare workers, because of the way that American businesses stepped up. Every state in this country is now opened up again, and 3/4 of America's small businesses are going back to work. The transition to greatness has begun, and we're building and rebuilding this economy on a strong foundation of what we were able to do over the first 3 years of this administration. You know, when President Trump and I were spending time in Michigan back in 2016, he promised people of Michigan that we'd cut taxes for working families and businesses large and small, that we'd roll back federal red tape, that we'd unleash American energy, that we'd fight for free and fair trade that puts American jobs and American workers first, and President Donald Trump delivered on every promise he made to the people of Michigan, and we saw more than 7 million jobs created in the first 3 years. And I have to tell you, all of that progress would not have been possible without two friends that I mentioned right at the top. And I wanted to give you one more opportunity to thank them. They are two principled conservative leaders. They've been partners with this administration every step of the way. They are deeply respected in the Congress of the United States. So would you join me one more time in thanking Congressman Paul Mitchell and Congressman John Molinar. Stand up and take a bow, guys. Thank you so much. They've been delivering for Michigan for the last 3.5 years, and the President and I are so grateful. And you know what? Because of that foundation that we laid, after all that we've been through as a nation over these last several months, the American comeback has begun. In fact, just a few short weeks ago, we actually saw in the month of May alone the largest one-month increase in jobs in American history. It's true. The experts were all telling us, weren't they, Ms. Secretary, that we could lose 8 million new jobs in that report. They said unemployment across the country might go from 14% to 20%, but actually the American people proved them wrong. And in the last month alone, America's businesses created nearly 3 million jobs. And we didn't stop there. Last week, the experts also predicted that retail sales would only grow by about 8%. But the American people knew they had another thing coming. As we say down in the Hoosier State, they shattered expectations. Retail sales soared by 17.7%, the largest monthly increase in sales ever recorded. The American people are driving a great American comeback. And as I stand before you today, I want to make all of you a promise. A centerpiece of this transition to greatness, a centerpiece of this comeback is going to be law and order in every community, in every state in the nation. Let me say from my heart, what happened to George Floyd in Minnesota was a tragedy. It shocked the conscience of every American. There's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting and violence that ensued in cities across this country. You know, like every American, we cherish and will always defend the First Amendment right of every one of our countrymen. We respect the concerns of peaceful protesters. But the people of Michigan know that most of the men and women who put on the uniform of law enforcement every day are the best people in this country. And we'll stand with them. I mean, we're listening, we're learning. And the action the President took this week reflects that we're leading. But I'll make you all a promise. We're not going to defund the police. You know, my uncle was a police officer in Chicago, not real far from here, for his entire career. He's one of the heroes of my youth, but I'll tell you, every one of us knows that men and women in law enforcement really are the best of us. They put on that uniform every day and they go and risk their lives to protect and serve our families. That's why the President and I sat down with leaders of law enforcement. We sat down with leaders in the African American community, and President Trump took action this week. He signed an executive order to make immediate resources and training available to police departments. We're going to work with law enforcement, work with our African American leaders and neighbors, and we're going to improve standards for the use of force for every community in the country. We're going to help our police to improve. We're also going to support law enforcement with resources and reform, but I promise you, we're not going to stop there. As President Trump said in Dallas last week, we're also going to work with the Congress to continue to move forward an agenda that not just includes public safety, but one that creates more jobs, more prosperity, and more educational opportunities for African Americans and all of our minority communities in the cities across the country. I mean, for the last 3 years, I'm proud to report to you that because of the policies that these congressmen supported and this president advanced, we saw the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans in this country. We saw the creation of more than 8,000 opportunity zones, generating billions of dollars in investment in underserved communities. And we're going to continue to work jobs and investment in our major cities in the country, not just for African Americans, but for every American. We're also going to address something that we learned about in the coronavirus pandemic. We saw early on, as I led that task force, that the coronavirus was impacting African Americans and other minorities in a disproportionate manner. What the experts told us is that was evidence of historic disparities in health care among our neighbors in the African American community. So we're going to bring free market solutions to give minority communities more choices in health care to improve their lives. It's about jobs, it's about health care, but it's also about education. You know, the reality is today that many of our African American neighbors are required to send their kids to some of our most failing and dangerous schools. And that's why this president, this vice president, and our administration are going to continue to fight every day to give African Americans and every American family the right to choose where your children go to school, whether it's public or private or parochial or religious. The American people believe they should decide where their children get their education, and we'll fight for it. So in the midst of all of this, I promise you, we're going to continue, as I said before, to listen, to learn, to lead. And we'll form a more perfect union, which is America's ongoing mission. We'll put Americans back to work. We'll bring our nation together as we open up America again. You know, the comeback that we're celebrating today would not have been possible without all of the efforts and sacrifices that all of you have made and companies like this made. It would not have been possible without the leadership of President Donald Trump and the partnership that we forged with states across the country. And this president, before there was a single coronavirus case in America, you all deserve to know, President Trump shut down all travel from China. It bought us an invaluable amount of time to stand up our national response. It's remarkable to think also that at the end of February, when he asked me to lead the White House Coronavirus Task Force, we'd actually performed only about 8,000 coronavirus tests in the entire country. But now, because of the public-private partnership that the President forged with American commercial laboratories, we're testing roughly 60 times that number every day. We're testing 500,000 Americans a day and have performed 23 million coronavirus tests, more than anywhere in the world. And we've been giving states what they need when they need it. And I'm proud to report to you, working with the state of Michigan, we delivered more than 560 million masks and gowns and face shields and personal protective equipment for our healthcare workers. But it was those efforts by industry, those efforts by the President, mobilizing a whole of government approach, even a whole of America approach, that launched our national response to the coronavirus. But ultimately, it was because of all of you that we are where we are today. Every single day, we're one day closer to putting the coronavirus in the past. Because of the sacrifices of millions of Americans who stayed home from work, from school, from places of worship, who closed down businesses, putting the health of their employees, their customers, and their community first. You made a real difference. And it's also a credit to the incredible healthcare workers in this country. I must tell you, The heroes of 2020 are the doctors, the nurses, the healthcare workers, and the first responders of America. They looked after our families as if they were their own, oftentimes without regard to their own personal safety. They went into harm's way. And here at Chartham Gear and Casa de Steel, you did your part. Chartham Gear, I'm told, stayed open during this pandemic, didn't let go any of your employees at any point. Thank you for your commitment to your workers. And I'm proud to say the Paycheck Protection Program that these congressmen supported helped them do that. And we were proud to be able to partner with you, keep people on the payroll, and the President just extended Paycheck Protection just about a week ago. But it wasn't just about keeping people on the payroll, keeping people working. This company you also helped our healthcare workers. I heard all about it. I talked to one of the guys working at the company who figured out how to print 3D masks, safety glasses, and face shields. And though production did slow during the first few months, I know you're on your way back to full capacity. But let me just say thank you. Thank you to Chartham. Thank you to the Chartham team. Thank you for keeping this business rolling, but thank you for what you did for the health and well-being of the people of Michigan. We're grateful. And I'm also told that when a local General Motors plant came to Cassiday and asked for help in building life-saving ventilators, this company stepped up and helped to create a new facility to manufacture life-saving ventilator parts. I mean, you met this moment with ingenuity and compassion and resolve. Because of your work, was told this morning General Motors is on track. It's one of our partners, along with several other great companies. But GM alone, with your help, is on track to build 30,000 ventilators by the month of August, and America is well on the way to producing 110,000 ventilators in less than 100 days. Thanks to all of you, because of American manufacturing, no American who required a ventilator was ever denied a ventilator in the United States. And I want to thank you for that. You know, as I said, when the President tapped me to lead this coronavirus task force, he said he wanted a whole-of-government approach, government at every level, federal, state, and local. But it was clear to me what President Trump really meant was a whole-of-America approach. And the way that American manufacturing stepped up, even before being asked, is deeply inspiring. When I think of that warlike mobilization that created personal protective equipment, that created ventilators, that stood up testing by the millions across the country, I only have 3 words to say. Only in America. Am I right? I mean, people like all of you, people at Chartham and Cassiday, you're really the living embodiment of American strength and resilience, both as a group but as individuals. I know it's personified in a man who I was told has spent over 30 years in manufacturing, who's a true Michigander through and through. I heard he worked his way up the ranks from a machine leader to night shift foreman to shop superintendent to manufacturing coordinator. Now he actually leads the company as president of Chartham Gear. Would you join me in thanking Mike Brosco? Where are you, Mike? Take a bow. Will you? Thank you again. He's also like the son of Italian immigrants whose parents came to America in pursuit of a better life 60 years ago. I'm told his parents boarded 2 separate ships that were named after our 2 great founding documents, the SS Constitution and the SS Independence. And their son would go on to found Casa de Steel in 2001. He built this company in one of the largest steel fabricators in the state of Michigan. It's a great American success story, and today just so happens to be his birthday. So would you join me in thanking Bruno Cassiday? Thank you, Bruno. Thanks so much. And happy birthday. And while you're at it, while you're still clapping, why don't you join me in thanking his mom, who is actually with us here today. Maria Cassidy, are you with us? Take a bow, Mom. What a great family. Come on, Mom, take a bow. What a great family. What a great family and what a great business. You know, we've all been through a lot in these past few months, but we responded just like the American people always do. We came together, and we're moving forward. Because of the sacrifices that you made in those 45 days to slow the spread, because of the way the people of Michigan, the people of America put the health of family members and neighbors and people they didn't even know first. Because of the way that businesses stepped up, put health first, and then also leaned in to make a difference as we stood up our national response. I'm proud to report to you, as the head of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, we slowed the spread. We flattened the curve. We cared for the most vulnerable, and we saved lives. And I promise you, in the days ahead, we're going to continue to create a solid foundation for whatever challenges may lie ahead. And we're going to do it in a way that puts America back to work. Every single day, we're proving, as you are here in Michigan, that we can safely reopen America. And you have our thanks. It really is great to be back in Michigan. I'm going to let you all get out of the sun. And I got a plane to catch. I will tell you, I ordered a pizza to go at that restaurant, and we're going to be eating it on Air Force Two, Gene, just so you know. You know, we live in challenging times. Not just the months through which we have passed, but the following weeks through which our nation has seen great strife, heartbreaking losses, inexplicable violence against innocent civilians, property, and law enforcement. Sometimes you turn on the television, it seems like there's more that divides us in these United States than unites us. But I'll always believe that there will always be more that unites us in this great country than could ever divide us. And chief among those virtues and values is this is a nation that loves freedom, and this is a nation of faith. As we see Americans stepping forward bravely, safely reopening their communities and their states and their business, it just reminds me what a freedom-loving country this is. I've been traveling around the nation, and I see the way the American people are stepping forward safely and responsibly, showing that we can exercise common sense and exercise our freedom and move forward. And it's truly inspiring. But also, I would just say to each of you that maybe from time to time bow the head and bend the knee. If you're inclined to pray from time to time, I'd encourage you to pray for America during these challenging times. First off, I'd ask you to pray for all the families that lost loved ones in the midst of this coronavirus, and for all of those that have been challenged in these most recent days. You know, the Bible says the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, and that should be our prayer for all of those who've endured loss. I also encourage you to pray for all of those healthcare workers, first responders, that even at this very hour are continuing to meet this moment with compassion and care and professionalism that inspires us each and every day. And lastly, I would just encourage you to just pray for all of the people of this country. The President said not long ago that we, as I said, he said we grieve together as a nation, but we heal together. You know, the good book says that if his people who are called by his name will humble themselves and pray, that he'll hear from heaven and he'll heal this land. So pray for America, and we will heal America and heal our land as we put America back to work. So thank you all for coming out in the sunshine. I'm going to let you go cool off, but it is great to be back in Michigan. I want to thank these two great companies for the warm welcome as we begin this transition to greatness, this great American comeback. I'm absolutely confident that with President Donald Trump in the White House, with all the great men and women of Sterling Heights, working hard to open up Michigan and open up America again, I just know the best days are yet to come for Michigan and America. Thank you. God bless you. And God bless the United States.